Welcome back, everyone, to something a little different today. We are going to revisit one of the very first videos I ever did a breakdown of back when Vlogging Through History probably had something like 20,000 subscribers. It was in the first months. I think it was about a month and a half into me doing reaction videos. The quality of the camera and the way I presented things was still being figured out. It's pretty poor, honestly. The lighting's all washed out. I talked over stuff instead of pausing, and I was still learning the whole process, right? So despite all of that, this video has 2.7 million views, my original reaction, and has added 19,000 subscribers to Vlogging Through History. I thought it was time, after 5 years, to go back and look at one of the great history videos ever created for this platform, The History of the Entire World, I Guess, by Bill Wurtz. So that's what we're going to do today. I'll put the link in the description to the original content from Bill Wurtz, but I'm also going to add the original reaction that I did as a link in the description. If you are one of those people that just wants to go back and look and see how far we've come. So that's what we're going to do. Let's dive into this one. And this time, I'll watch the whole video.
Hi, you're on a rock, floating in space. Pretty cool, huh? Some of it's water. Fuck it. Actually, most of it's water. I can't even get from here to there without buying a boat. It's sad. I'm sad. I miss you. How did this happen? A long time ago. Actually, never. And also now. Nothing is nowhere. When? Never. Makes sense, right? Like I said, it didn't happen.
Yeah, so if you saw my original recording of the reaction to this, I didn't do the first part. I waited until we got to written history because a lot of this early stuff is obviously a combination of philosophy and science and also religion, depending on what your background is, what you believe. It's kind of all of that stuff, and a lot of it is based on what we kind of have our preconceived notions of those things. Science can tell us so much. It can guess, educated guesses. And that's really what a lot of this is. And it's fascinating, to say the least.
Nothing was never anywhere. That's why it's been everywhere. It's been so everywhere, you don't need a where. You don't even need a when. That's how every it gets.
It's awkwardly long.
Forget this. I want to be something.
I actually really like that part where he kind of before space and time exists, because how do we have space and time unless there's something to measure? And that happens with, in science we call it the Big Bang, and biblical Christianity we would call it Genesis, the beginning. God says, let there be light. Whatever you call it, we went from nothing to something, or we went from one something to another something.
Go somewhere. Do something. I want things to change. I want to invent time and space. And I know it's possible because everything is here and it probably already happened. I just don't know when to start. And that's exactly where it started. Oh, I paused it. I think there's a universe now. What's it made of? Quarks and stuff. Ah, that's a thing. In a place. Don't like it? Try a new place. At a different time. Try to stick together because the world is going to get bigger and emptier. But it's not empty yet. It's still very full and about 1 jillion degrees. Great news, the quarks are now happily married in groups of 3, called a proton or a neutron. And there's something else flying around too that wants to join in but can't because it's still too... Great news, the protons and neutrons are now happily married to each other. Some of them even doubled up. Great news, the electrons have now joined in. Congratulations, the world is now a bunch of gas in space. But it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. It's a star. New shit just got made. Some stars burn out and die. Bigger stars burn out and die with passion and make some brand new, way crazy.
So speaking of supernovas, we may see one in our lifetime or in generations to come. Betelgeuse, the star, is probably already gone supernova, but we just don't know it yet because it's so many, it's hundreds of light years away, and so it could have happened hundreds of years ago. We just haven't seen it yet.
Crazier shit. Space dust, which allows newer, more interesting stars to be made and then die and explode into even crazier space dust. So now,
my son Eli and I, we love to do space photography. We have a telescope and we'll point it at things and do long exposure photography and stack them on top of each other. I love, love, love. I mean, I know I'm a historian and history's my thing, but I do love space, and it's always fascinated me.
Now stars have cool stuff around them, like rocks, ice, and funny clouds, which can make some very interesting things. Like this ball of flaming rocks, for example. Holy shit, we just got hit with another ball of flaming rocks. And it kind of made a mess, which is now the moon. Weather update, it's raining rocks from outer space. Weather update, those rocks might have had water inside them and now there's hot steam in the sky. Weather update, cooler temperatures today and the floor is no longer lava. Weather update,
I mean, tell me you haven't played the floor as lava at some point in your life, right? I'm just trying to kill some time here before we get to the history because I'm a historian. This is what I do. This is all great, though.
raining. Severe flooding alert, the entire world is now an ocean. Volcano alert. That's land. There's life in the ocean. What? Something's alive in the ocean. Oh, cool, like a plant or an animal? No, a microscopic speck. It lives at the bottom of the ocean and eats chemical soup, which is being served hot and fresh, made from gnarly space ingredients left over from when it was raining rocks or whatever. Oh yeah, and it can do that. It has secret instructions written inside itself telling it how to build another one of itself. So that's pretty nifty, I would say. Tired of living at the bottom?
And think about the fact that up until, less than 100 years ago, we really didn't even know what DNA was. I've been in the, what's it called? The Eagle? The name of the pub that in Cambridge, England, where Watson and Crick announced to the world that they had discovered DNA. And I know there's some controversy about who discovered what and when, but really it's just in the last couple of generations that we even know this stuff. Imagine what we'll know 100 years from now.
The ocean? Now you can eat sunlight. Using a revolutionary technique, you can convert sunlight into food. Taste the sun. Side effect, now there's oxygen everywhere and the sky's blue. Then the Earth might have been a snowball for a while, maybe even a couple of times. It's a sponge, it's a plant, it's a worm and some other types of weird, strange water bugs and strange fish. It's the Cambrian explosion. Wow, that's animals and stuff. But we're still in the ocean. Hey, can we go on land? No. Why? The sun is a deadly laser. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Not anymore, there's a blanket. Now the animals can go on land. Come on, animals, let's go on land. Nope, can't walk yet. And there's no food yet, so I don't care. Okay, will you learn to walk if there's plants up here? Maybe, said some bugs. And fish. Okay, so I can go on land, but I have to go back in the water to have babies. Learn to use an egg.
I was already doing that.
Use a stronger egg. Put water in it. Have a baby on land in an egg. Water is in the egg. Baby in the egg, in the water, in the egg. Works for me. Bye-bye, ocean. And now everything's huge, including bugs. Want to see a map of the
And
land?
another thing, I mean, dinosaurs, something that George Washington didn't know existed because we hadn't really discovered them yet. We hadn't figured out what they were, at least.
Sure. Oh, fuck, now everything's dead. Just kidding, here are the survivors. Keep your eye on this one because it's about to become the dinosaurs. Here's another map of the land. Yeah, it broke apart, don't worry about it, it does that all the time. Here comes a meteor. And the dinosaurs are gone. It's mammal time, here come the mammals. Look at those breasts. Now they're gonna dominate the world, and one of them just learned how to grab stuff. And walk. No, like, walk like that. And grab stuff at the same time. And bang rocks together to make pointed rocks. Ouch. And set things on fire. Youch. And make crazy sounds with their voice. Knirsch, which can mean different things. That's a human person. And now they're everywhere. Almost. Ice Age. What? You
Not
can
here yet.
walk over here? Cool. Not anymore. Well, I guess we're stuck here now. Let's review. There's people on the planet. And they're chasing their food. Fuck it, time to plant some grass. Look at this. I control the food now.
Yeah, right. So up until this point, if you've learned it in school, you learn about hunter-gatherers, right? You very few people on the world at this point, so you're just finding food wherever you can find it. But at some point, you're going to figure out why go looking for the food when I can make the food happen here. It's amazing to me that all of the combined knowledge that we have in the world today started somewhere. At some point, people figured out that you could plant things in a row and grow it, but then they figured out that you had to water it, or that you had to rotate the crops, or that you had to plant other crops in other places, and that certain crops wouldn't grow in certain... It's just there's so much. It's amazing.
Now everyone will want to be my friend and live near me. Let's all build houses, except mine is bigger because I own the food. This is great. I wonder...
And that's another great point, is that everything has evolved from something, even the way people interact with one another. When people were spread out and doing their own thing, there was no need for things like government and social structure. But once people start living close to each other, what happens when there's a disagreement? And you can still see the fruits of this, in reality shows. Granted, they're all, I understand that they're highly suspect as far as how organic they are, but you throw a bunch of people onto an island with no rules, and you figure out what happens. Really, really off topic here, but years ago I was in a workshop where I had been put into this workshop with other people that had a similar job to me, and they gave us a set of instructions on what we had to work on. And afterwards, we were debriefing about it, and I had people who had known me for a while who told me they were surprised at how outspoken I was, and about how kind of I didn't really like sit back and let other people take charge, that I tried to take charge, because they hadn't seen that from me, because normally I operated within a structure where there was a hierarchy and I had people who had a position in charge over me. And I respected that. But in the vacuum where there was no person to take charge, I felt the need to fill that vacuum and take charge. And that's what's going to happen. You're going to have people who are going to take charge, and then someone's going to come along and either use force or use their intellect to say, we need to set about a hierarchy and put people in charge. And everything that has happened since has developed from that.
If anyone else is doing this, tired of using rocks for everything? Use metal. It's underground. Better farming was just invented in a sweet dank valley right in between these two rivers, and the animals are helping. Guess what happens next? More food, and more people who came to buy the food. Now you need people to help make the food and keep track of the sales. And now you need houses for people to live in and people to make the houses. And now there's more people and they invent things, which makes things...
Everything develops from need. Oh, we need people to build houses because there was a time 100 years ago, 150 years ago, where most of my ancestors were what you call a subsistence farmer. They farmed their own land, they grew their own food, they built their own house, because there just weren't people around and they weren't living in a city where you could take advantage of other people to do that. Now, if I need my roof replaced, I don't know how to replace my roof. I call somebody who knows how to do that. That developed over time. This is the beginning of where that's all developing.
It's better, and more people come, and there's more farming, and more people to make more things for more people, and now there's business, money, writing, laws, power. Society.
And with the advent of writing comes the advent of history. So when does history begin? History really is, and you can argue this, you can say, well, history is anything that happened. But to me personally, I look to written history. And when does written history begin? Well, about 5,500 years ago. You're talking about what we would call the 3000s BC is when you really get written history for the first time. And it's in the Middle East. It's in northern Africa. It's places like Egypt, for example, where they figure out they can write stuff down, and now they need a language to do that in. For the Egyptians, it's hieroglyphics. For other groups, it's other things. And now they're going to start giving us a written history of what they saw, what they experienced, what they did.
Coming soon to a dank river valley near you. Meanwhile, out in the middle of nowhere, the horse is probably being tamed. Why is all my metal so lame and lumpy? Tired of using lame, sad metal? Introducing bronze, made with special ingredient tin from the far lands of Tinland. I don't know.
Tinland. So you you take copper and tin, you put it together in the right percentage, and you get bronze. All of this had to have happened through trial and error and experimenting. And to go back to what he said about the rivers, up until, again, maybe 200 years ago, rivers are everything, right? Rivers are your main means for water to survive. They're your means for transport between point A and point B. It's your way of moving goods from one place to another. And it's only with the advent of things like the railroad that begins to change.
My dealer won't tell me where he gets it. Also, guess what? Egypt. Meanwhile, out in the middle of nowhere, they figured out how to put wheels on a horse. Now we're getting somewhere.
Chariots.
Also, China. And did I mention Indus River Valley civilization?
Yeah, so I don't know much about some of these other places. Obviously, being someone who's in the West, being someone who grew up as a Christian, most of my knowledge, most of what I've learned is going to center around the Middle East and Egypt and those societies, Mesopotamia, Egypt. There's so much more knowledge out there in these other places that I just don't have much to offer, unfortunately.
The Middle East is getting more complicated, maybe because it's in the middle of the East.
So what happens now? Civilizations are springing up. It's just like what we talked about with the science part, where gases are expanding and then things form together and they form planets and stars and all that sort of thing. Now you have people who are spread out, coming together, forming civilizations, and then they start to grow back out again, and they start running into each other. Now we have to develop things like war and better weapons for war. And so much of our technology throughout time has been based on how to get ahead of the other civilizations that we are competing with, that we want to dominate, that we want to destroy in some cases.
Not, clop clop. It's the people with the horses. And they made an empire. And then everyone else copied their horses. Greeks! Ah, look, it must be the Greeks. Or a beta version of the Greeks. Let's check in with the Indus River Valley civilization. They're gone. Guess who's not gone? China. New arrivals in India. Maybe it's those horse people I was talking about. Or their cousins or something.
And you say maybe because it's amazing how much we still just don't know. In some cases, we have just better written records that have been left behind. In other cases, we just haven't found it yet. A lot of the places where there is a ton to discover, there's just not the time and the resources. This is one of the things I've been learning over time when I've been visiting places like Jordan or visiting even northern England when we were hiking Hadrian's Wall, is that there are all these amazing historic sites where we know there's incredible archaeological discoveries to be made, and there's just not the funding for it or the time for it. There are places where they are researching and they are digging, but it's going to take them 50 years to dig through everything. There are places like northern Jordan where they've got these massive Roman cities that are big and discoverable, but there's just not the time or the money or the resources to do it. Look at the last 50 years, last 100 years, last 150 years, what we have discovered and what has changed what we understand about history. It's not that the history changed. The history was always there. We just hadn't found it yet. So we'll fill in the gaps and we'll discover more, and it'll refine our understanding, and it'll confirm some things and change what we thought we knew.
With some hymns and mantras and stuff. You could make a religion out of this. There's the Bronze Age collapse. Now the Phoenicians can get down to business. Also, can we switch to a metal that's a little easier to find? Thanks. Look who came back to Israel. It's the 12 tribes of Israel. And they believe in God. Just one.
So, yeah, YHWH is Yahweh. It's the same word that we translate as Jehovah in Latin and in other languages. There's, the same words mean different things. So Jesus is Yeshua in Aramaic, which was the language that he spoke. It's Joshua is also translated. So YHWH, Yahweh, Jehovah, it's the name of God. If you're reading a modern English translation of the Old Testament, it's going to say the Lord, but Lord will be in all capital letters, and that's where it was written Yahweh originally.
No, he's got like a 10-step program. Here's some huge heads. Must be the Olmecs. The Phoenicians make some colonies. The Greeks copy their idea and make some colonies. The Phoenicians made a colony so big it makes colonies. Here comes the Assyrian Empire. Never mind, it's the Babylonian Median. It's the Persian Empire.
And this is all stuff that gets described in the Old Testament as well, which we know that the earliest copies that we have of the Old Testament are written around this time when all this stuff's going on.
Wow, that's big. Ah, the Buddha was just enlightened. Who's the Buddha? This guy who sat under a tree for so long that he figured out how to ignore the fact that we're all dying. You can make a religion out of this. Oops, China just...
I've always understood, correct me if I'm wrong here, those of you who may be adherents to Buddhism, I've always thought of Buddhism more as a philosophy than a religion. But I guess the lines get blurred sometimes between those two things.
Broke, but while it was breaking, Confucius was figuring out how to have good morals. Ah, the Greeks just had the idea of thinking about stuff. And right over here, Alexander just had the idea of conquering the entire Persian Empire. It's a great idea. He was great. And now he's dead. Hopefully the rest of the gang will be able to share the empire evenly between them.
And this is what we see happen often for the next couple of thousand years. The Mongols, same thing. The Romans eventually end up doing this as well. You just can't keep everything together and it breaks up. The Romans stay together a lot longer than a lot do. But when you have a system where it's not about national borders, but it's rather about the identity of the person who rules it, like Alexander the Great, and then he has to pass that on to his descendants or to his heirs. In this case, you're talking about generals like Ptolemy. It gets all split up, and then that gets split up, and then the people who each got a chunk of it try to put it all back together, and they go to war with each other, and it's just a mess.
Knock at Chandragupta. He says, get the hell out of here. Will you get the hell out of here if I give you 500 elephants? Okay, thanks, bye. Time to conquer all of India, or most of India. But what about this part? That's the Tamil Kings. No one conquers the Tamil Kings. Who are the Tamil Kings? Merchants, probably. And they've got spices. Who would like to buy the spices? Me, said the Arabian, swiftly buying it and selling it to the rest of the world. Hey, China.
And we talk all the time about lenses through which to view history, and trade is one of the most important lenses. One of the reasons when we get to the New World being discovered by Europeans, it was all motivated by trade. Trade causes the spread of religions, the spread of ideas. Trade leads to wars. Trade leads to languages becoming what they are.
Put itself back together again with good morals as their main philosophy. Actually, they have 3 main philosophies. Out here, the horse nomads run wild and free, and they would like to ransack your city. Let's check the Greekification levels of the Greekified kingdoms. Greekification overload. Bye, said the Parthians. Bye, said the Jews. Hi, said the Parthians, taking over the entire place. Hey, said the Romans, eating the entire Mediterranean for breakfast. Thanks for invading our homeland, said the Jews, who were starting to get tired of people invading their homeland. Hi, everything's great, said some guy who seems to be getting very popular and is then arrested and killed for being too popular, which only makes him more popular. You can make a religion out of this. Want silk? Now you can buy it from China. They just made a brand new road to the world. Or you can get their own water. Sick, new trade routes, said India, accidentally spreading their religion to the entire southeast.
Right. It's, again, spread of religion, trade, all one thing. And in the case of Christianity, it's going to spread because of missionaries, because of Jesus giving the Great Commission to spread the gospel, go into all the world and preach the gospel, making disciples of all nations. So it's kind of the mandate that he gives, but it's going to be helped by things like Constantine becoming a Christian and legalizing Christianity within the Roman Empire, and then not long after that, Christianity becoming the religion of the Roman Empire, which gives it kind of this overdrive.
That's a good place for an epic trading kingdom. There goes Buddhism traveling up the Silk Road. I wonder if it'll reach China before it collapses again. Remember the Persian Empire? Yep, said the Persians, making a new one. Axum is getting so powerful they would like to build a long stick. Has anyone populated Madagascar yet? Let's do it together. China's whole again, then it broke again.
Just imagine if China had been united and didn't fight civil wars throughout thousands of years of history. Just how, I mean, because the population is massive as it is, but the number of people who died in some of those civil wars just boggles the mind.
Still can't cross the Sahara Desert? Try camels. Hell yeah, now we got business, said the Ghana Empire, selling lots of gold.
Yeah, up until this point, you've got a natural barrier, much like water is a natural barrier. And this is the area we call sub-Saharan Africa, so when you hear that term.
And slaves. Hi, I live in the Roman Empire, and I was wondering, is loving Jesus legal?
Yeah, no.
No. Actually, okay, sure, said Constantine, moving.
So it's important to note that while... like I grew up as a Christian hearing all the time about the Roman persecution of Christians. Did Christians get persecuted by the Romans? Yes. And there's a few reasons why they would be persecuted when, say, the Jews or people adhering to other religions wouldn't be. And that is that the Christians, by the nature of how they were spreading their religion, necessarily had to outright reject the idea that Caesar was himself God, because they were proclaiming there's only one God. And they were going into the world and converting people, whereas the Jews still believed in just one God, but they kind of just kept to themselves and weren't going out of their way to proselytize. And so they weren't viewed as much of a threat to people in the Roman world. And so, for the most part, persecution of Christians was localized. There are some big Roman-wide persecutions under Nero. There's a massive persecution. They're not being thrown to the lions in large numbers because, for example, the Colosseum doesn't exist yet during Nero's time. It comes not long after him. But Nero did things like he would light them on fire and use them as candles at dinner parties, things like that. You have under Domitian, Diocletian, there's some persecution that happens, and other times there are empire-wide persecutions. But for the most part, it's more localized than that.
The capital way over here to be closer to his main rival. Don't worry about Rome, it won't fall. It's the golden age of India. There's the Gupta Empire, not Chandragupta, just Gupta. First name Chandra, the first. Guess who's in Rome? Barbarians. What's a barbarian? Non-Romans, said the Romans,
right.
Being invaded by non-Romans. All right.
Yeah, many of the barbarians were as sophisticated as the Romans in terms of government and taxation and hierarchy and infrastructure and all that sort of thing. They just weren't Romans.
Roman Empire, or actually just half of it. The other half is just fine, but it's not in Rome anymore, so let's give it a new name. The Mayans have figured out the star.
And it's important to point out, too, that when we refer to a lot of these empires, we are using the names by which we know them. Dynasties, we do the same thing. They're not necessarily how they would have known themselves. Later on, when we get to England and we're talking about the Wars of the Roses, right? They didn't call it the Wars of the Roses. They weren't going out of their way to identify the Yorks as the White Rose and the Lancastrians as the Red Rose. These are things we applied later. Plantagenet for the dynasty. That's a term we applied later. They thought of themselves as the Angevin dynasty because they came from Anjou. So when we are talking about the Byzantine Empire, we are doing that to differentiate in our minds, in our historical record, who they were and where their government was centered. They were the Romans. As far as they were concerned, they were the Romans.
Oh, and here's a huge city, population everyone. The Gok Turks have taken over the entire Eurasian steppe. Great job, Gok Turks. How's India? Broken. How's China? Back together. How's those trading kingdoms? Bigger and there's more of them. Korea has 3 kingdoms. Japan has a kingdom. It's the Sunrise Kingdom. Deep in the Arabian desert, on the top of a mountain, the real God whispers in Muhammad's ear. So he goes down to the cube where everyone worships gods, and he tells them their gods are all fake. And everyone got so mad at him that he had to leave town and go to a different town. You can make a religion out of this, and maybe conquer the world as well. The Roman Empire is long gone, but...
And, we've talked about the history of Islam. Again, not something I fully understand as well as I should. But Christianity spread its religion in the way that it did. And eventually, many Christians are going to weaponize Christianity and use force to spread it, just as the Muslims did in their early days.
Somehow the Pope is still the Pope. Plus there's new kingdoms all over Europe. I wonder if there's room for Moors. Here's all the wisdom. In a house. It's the Baghdad House of Wisdom, just in time for the Islamic Golden Age. Let's bring stuff to the coast and sell it and become the Swahili on the Swahili coast, said the Swahili on the Swahili coast. Remember this tiny space you have to go through to get from here to there? Someone owns that now. Want to get enlightened in the middle of nowhere?
And when you own the space along which people have trading routes, you have opportunities to get rich. You have opportunities to build infrastructure, to build places that people can stop and invest in those things. And that's one of the things that we see causing growth in places where it didn't exist before, is when you're along a trading route, when you're along a travel route, when you're along a route where people have to get from point A to point B, you have an opportunity to benefit from that.
The Franks have the biggest kingdom in Europe, and the Pope is so proud that he invites the king over for Christmas. Surprise, you're the new Roman emperor, said.
This is a huge moment because this is really the moment when you begin to see a strong link outside of the Roman Empire, anyway, where you have a strong link between the church and the state, ostensibly. The state looks different, right? Because the state is a person at this point. It's all about feudalism, and it's about your connection to lords and vassals. It's not boundaries of countries, but the concept is here. And you have the legitimizing of one another. You have the Pope legitimizing the government under the Frankish government under Charlemagne, and you have Charlemagne legitimizing the church by allowing him to crown him as Roman emperor at St. Peter's at the Vatican at this point. And from this point forward, all of these nations in Europe are, well, not all of them, but eventually all of them are going to derive their authority, their earthly authority, from their spiritual head in Rome, until you start to see that change in the 14 and 1500s.
The Pope pretending to still be part of the Roman Empire. Then the Franks broke their kingdom into what will later be called France and not France.
France and not France. East and West Francia, you had Lotharingia in the center, and this is under Charlemagne's grandchildren. It gets all split up. Same thing we talked about earlier, where they just can't hold on because they can't agree on one person being the head, and the way that lands get distributed among children at this point. You don't have yet things like male preference, primogeniture, where everything gets inherited by the oldest son.
The Northerners, or just Norse if you don't have much time, are exploring. They go north, from the north to the northern north, and they find some land, 2 types of land, and they name them accordingly.
Except, you notice the problem here, right? Iceland and Greenland, backwards.
They also invade some other places and get called many names, such as Vikings. There's the Rus, the Kievan Rus. Are they Vikings? I don't think so, said the Kievan Rus. Okay, fair enough. The Pope is ready to make some more emperors of the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire. It's actually Germany, but don't...
It's Germany and northern, what we would call Italy today, Austria, parts of Switzerland.
Don't worry about it. New kingdoms.
Christianize all the kingdoms.
Which brand would you like? Mine's better. Mine's better. Mine's better. Time to
Schism.
conquer England, said William. It's a bird. It's a plane.
And William is descended from the Norsemen in his male line. But, you know, the Viking, which Viking is really more of an action than it is a people. Just we apply the name of what they did to who they were. But they were all over the place, including the Byzantine Empire.
Seljuk Turks, said the Byzantine Empire, who's getting so small it almost doesn't exist anymore. We need help. They need help, so they call the Pope. Hey, Pope, can you help us get rid of the Seljuks? Maybe take back the Holy Land on the way? Come on, I know you want to take back the Holy Land. Yes, I do actually want to do that. Let's do a crusade. Crusade! They did many crusades, some of which almost didn't fail, but at least the Italians got some sweet trade deals. Goodbye, Mayans.
Hello, Toltecs.
Goodbye, Toltecs.
Hello, Mississippi.
Look at those mounds. There's the Pueblo. I always wondered how to build a town in a cliff. Guess who's here? Come here. Where? Here. And Pagan is there. Vietnam unconquered itself. Korea just became itself. And Japan is so addicted to art that the military might have to take over the government. China just invented bombs and typing. And the Mongols just invaded most of the universe. Nice.
And, you know, when we think of movable type, obviously, those of us in the West think of the things like the Gutenberg Bible, Johannes Gutenberg. We think of the printing press. But the idea of movable type obviously goes back much, much further. But a lot of inventions that we have throughout history, the people we ascribe them to are not necessarily the first ones to come up with the idea. They're just the ones who made the idea mass producible or made the idea practical in such a way that it made a big impact on history. So that's why you have gunpowder in China, but then gunpowder comes to the West and it becomes a much bigger deal. You have movable type, but then you have the printing press, so on and so forth.
It's going, Genghis. I bet that will last a long time. Some of the Islamic Turks were unaffected by the Mongol invasions because they were busy invading India. Is it Tonga time? I think it's Tonga time. I just found out where the Swahili gets all their gold. Look at this Chad. Means lake. There's an empire there.
I didn't know Chad meant lake. That's interesting.
The king of Mali is so rich he's going on tour to let everyone know. Wow.
There's some arguments that that was the richest man in the history of ever. It's so hard to nail that down. It's honestly better anytime we're talking about history to say he's certainly in the conversation for one of the richest people of all time. Just like when we try to argue about who's the greatest military leader of all time, it's honestly stupid to do that. You can just say, you know what, he's one of the greatest. He's in that conversation.
Guy's rich, everyone said. The Christians are doing a great job reconquering Iberia, which will soon be called Spain and not Spain.
A lot of these things are things we've made videos about, and if you just go searching on the channel, I've got 1,500 videos. We've done videos about the Reconquista. We've done videos about Charlemagne. We've done videos about the some of these conquests that have happened.
Please remain Christian.
Crusades.
We'll check in later to see if you're still Christian when you least expect. Whoops, half of Europe just died.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
China's back, yay! Hey, come here, time to share. New kingdoms here and there. Oh,
and just to kind of go back to what he said for a second there, talking about the Black Death, again, this boils down to trade, right? The bubonic plague is being brought over, I think it's brought to what is now Italy first, through trade, a trade route, and it's brought on a trading ship. And it gets dumped in Europe, and then it gets spread from there on other ships and through travel that people are making from one place to another. And just imagine what happens to a world. Imagine if your town suddenly, half the people in your town were dead. First of all, you got to deal with what to do with all the bodies, but then you've got to figure out who's going to operate the stores, who's going to make sure you have electricity and food, who's going to pick up the trash afterwards, who's going to treat you when you get sick. All of this stuff. And you don't have cars where you can drive 50 miles to get that help. You've got to rely on it in your town.
Look who controls all the islands. It's the Mahajapit, Majahapit, Mapajahit, Mahapajit, Mapajahit, Majapahit. Oh, Italy's really rich. Time for them to care a lot about art
Renaissance.
and the ancient classics. It's kind of like a rebirth. Here's a printer. Let's make books. So you think you can conquer the business?
What a game changer being able to mass produce printing instead of it being hand copied one at a time. It's honestly, I say, on the level of the internet is for us and the access it gives us to information. That's the kind of game changer being able to mass produce would be for them.
Byzantine Empire? Yep, said the Ottoman Turks. Nice job, Ottoman Turks. Oops, you missed a spot. Don't forget to ban...
So 1453, Constantinople falls. It's often referred... It's one of those defining moments between which we talk about before and after. And this is, for many people, the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of what we would call a more modern era. It's the end of the medieval period. In England, they probably point to a couple of decades later when you have 1485, the Battle of Bosworth, when you have the Tudors taking over from hundreds of years of the people I talked about earlier, and suddenly I can't remember their names, the Plantagenets.
Europe from the Indian spice trade. What? That's bullshit, said Portugal, spiceless.
Well, I guess we'll have to find another way
Trade, driving discovery.
to India.
Wait, said Christopher Columbus, probably smoking crack. If the world is round, let's go this way to India.
This is such an overlooked point of why the New World gets discovered, is that when Constantinople falls and that trade route gets cut off to Europe, that trade drives innovation. War and trade are two big drivers of innovation, and in this case, of discovery.
No, don't worry, we already got this, said Portugal. So Chris goes to Spain. Hey, Spain, want to hire me to find India by going around back of the world? No, please, no, please, no, please. Okay.
And Spain at this point is a brand new united country, right? Because you have Aragon and Castile being united in marriage. So Ferdinand and Isabella, who were learning so much about in school growing up, they're bringing together what is now Spain. And these countries that we think of in the modern sense are very often not as old as one might think.
So he sails into the ocean and discovers more ocean, and then discovers the Indies and Japan. Let's draw a line to decide who gets which half of the world. The Aztec and Inca empires.
Yeah, and there's why you have Brazil speaking Portuguese when most of the rest of South America ends up speaking Spanish. It's because of the line of demarcation.
To a great start. I wonder if they know that Europe just discovered their continent. The Habsburgs are marrying into so many royal families they might have to start marrying each other. Move over, Lithuania. Here comes Moscow. Ivan wants to make Russia great again. Move over, Timurids. Maybe go invade India or something. Persia just made Persia Persian again. Let's make it the other kind of Islam. The one where we thought the first guy should have been the other guy. Hey, Christian.
So, Sunni and Shia Islam really go back to a debate about who was the correct heir of Muhammad. And I've talked to Muslims in places like Jordan and Egypt and asked their opinion on this. And I think, at least the Muslims that I've spoken to, their view of it is that it's probably a lot bigger deal to people on the outside looking in than it is to us. Just as you have different denominations of Christianity, and our debates are over theological topics that in the end really might be a big deal to some of us, but for the average Christian, it's like, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian. That's how most Muslims see this as well. But we in the West, or we who are not Muslim, might see on TV the way that a big deal gets made of certain things, and we might think that that's how everybody views it because that's what we see on TV, or because we hear from a few extreme people who have very strong opinions on that. It's the same thing.
Do you sin? Now you can buy your way out of hell. That's bullshit. This whole thing is bullshit. That's a scam. Fuck the church. Here's 95 reasons why.
Now, I won't go so far as to say that Martin Luther was saying F the church. Martin Luther wanted to fix the church. Like a lot of situations throughout history, not just religious ones, but also with governments. It's the same thing looking ahead to the United States. Initially, the Continental Congress did not want to just up and declare independence from Great Britain. They wanted to fix the problem. They wanted representation. They wanted a voice, is how they viewed it. And it was only when they couldn't get that they said, well, our only recourse is independence. And Martin Luther here is trying to fix the church. He's not trying to break the church. He's not trying to start his own denomination. He's not trying to split and cause another schism. It's only when that becomes obvious that there's no other way that happens.
Said Martin Luther in his new book, which might have accidentally started the Protestant Reformation. You know what would be magnificent?
There was already stuff happening. Martin Luther's not the first one to come along to want to try and reform the church. He's just the voice that sticks, so to speak.
Said Suleiman wearing an onion hat. What if the Ottoman Empire was really big, which it is now? What if Russia was big, said Ivan, trying not to be terrible. Portugal had
Ivan
a dream
IV.
that they controlled the entire Indian Ocean, including the spice trade. And then that dream was real. And Spain realized that this is not India, but they pillaged it anyway. Damn, said England and France. We gotta start pillaging some stuff. Then the Dutch revolt and all the hipsters moved to Amsterdam. Damn, said Amsterdam. We gotta start pillaging some stuff. Question 1, can you get to India through North America? No, but at least there's beaver. Question 2, steal the spice trade. That's not a question, but the Dutch did it anyway. Guess where all the sugar's made? In Brazil. Stolen. In the Caribbean. And it's so...
Yeah, and this is where you're going to have the slave trade really take root initially. It's not as much in what becomes the American South. It really becomes profitable in a major way in the American South after the advent of the cotton gin in the late 1700s, because it makes harvesting cotton very quick and easy and painless, and it makes it profitable to have large numbers of enslaved people on plantations. But you already have that on these sugar plantations in the Caribbean. So producing sugar, producing molasses, things like that.
So goddamn profitable, you might forget to not do slavery. The next thing on Russia's to-do list is to get bigger. Britain and France are having a friendly discussion about who should control the entire world, more specifically, Ohio. Then it escalates into a 7-year discussion.
It's all about Ohio in the end. And George Washington plays a part in this, right? The 7 Years' War is really kind of, a lot of people refer to it as World War Zero. In the United States, we call it the French and Indian War, but it's part of the same larger war. And Washington kind of ticks off the French and triggers the North American component of this.
Giving Prussia a chance to show Austria who's boss. But what about Britain and France? Did they figure out who's boss? Yes, they did. It's Britain. Guess who's broke? Also Britain. So they start taxing the hell out of America. Fuck you, says America, declaring their independence and fighting for it. And France helps them win. Now France is broke. And Britain will have to send their prisoners to a different continent. Wait, if France is broke, why...
See how it's all connected? Everything's connected. Anytime you start telling the story of one thing, you could always tell the story of the thing that came before it. You can't, here in the U.S., when we're learning about the American Revolution, usually the story starts with the French and Indian War. But the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, happens because of the things that come before it. And the American Revolution then leads directly to the French Revolution, which leads directly to the Napoleonic Wars, which lead directly to the things that happen in the 19th century, and the unification of Germany, and the unification of Italy, and the French Republic, and then another French Empire, and then World War I and World War II, the Franco-Prussian Wars before World War I. It's all connected.
The king and queen still wear such fancy dresses. Let's overthrow the palace and cut all their heads off, said Robespierre, cutting everybody's
Until he
head
got
off
his head
until
cut
someone
off.
eventually got mad and cut his head off. You could make a No, don't. Hades.
They did, though, and I talked about this the first time, I think, if I remember right, in this video. They attempt to abolish, because remember that one of the powerful influences in France during the end of the monarchy is the church. And so when the people rise up and they overthrow the monarchy, they want to overthrow the church too, a lot of them. They want to overthrow the influence the church has. And so they start temples of reason. They have a cult of reason, it's called. And when Napoleon comes to power, he backs off of that a little bit, not necessarily out of any deep love for Christianity himself, but because he sees the church as having a role in the people and their mindset and their hearts, and controlling the people, but also focusing the people. And so he allows it to start to come back.
Starting to like the idea of a revolution, especially the slaves who free themselves by killing their masters. Why didn't we think of this before? Wait, who's in charge of France now? Said Napoleon, trying to take over Europe. Luckily, they banished him to an island.
And Napoleon tries to put down the revolt in Haiti and tries to reverse that, but he's not able to. And when he realizes he can't do that, and he's got his hands full with the coalition wars in Europe, that's when he takes this newly acquired territory from Spain, which we call the Louisiana Territory, and flips it to the United States, sells it to the U.S., which directly contributes then to westward expansion for the United States. And so you have a direct connection between the revolt in Haiti and the events in Europe and Manifest Destiny in the United States.
He came back.
Luckily, they banished him to another island. There goes Latin America, becoming independent in the Latin American Wars of Independence.
And this all, because this happens and Europe loses its foothold on the Americas, it turns its focus now to Africa.
Britain just figured out how to turn steam into power, so now they can make
Many different types of machines and factories with machines in them.
Industrial
so they
Revolution.
Can make a lot of products real fast.
And you need the raw materials for those products, and you got to get those from somewhere.
Then they invent some trains and conquer India and maybe put some trains there. Hey, China, said Britain, buy stuff from us. Nah, dude, we already got everything, says China. So Britain tried to get them addicted to opium, which worked actually. But then China made it illegal and dumped it all into the sea. So Britain threw a hissy fit and made them open up 5 cities and give them an island. Britain and Russia are playing a game where they try to stop each other from conquering Afghanistan. Also, the Sultan
It's like the Cold War, right? You know, trying to keep each other from conquering a territory.
Oman lives in Zanzibar now.
That's just where he lives. India just had a revolution, and they would like to govern themselves now. Nope, said Britain, governing them even harder than before.
Technology is about to go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game changer, right? Mass communication, being able to send messages in a matter of hours over hundreds or even thousands of miles instead of over days or weeks or months. Think about how in the span of 100 years, you go from a round trip, sending a message from, say, London to New York is going to take months to send a message and get a reply. And now, in the late 1860s, you've got a transatlantic cable that allows you to send a message there and back in hours instead of months. We cannot underestimate, we can't overestimate it, just how shocking that would be to the world, that little change of something like that.
The United States finally figured out whether slavery is good or bad. It's bad, they decided. And then they continued manifesting their destiny, which is to kill the rest of the natives and take their land and maybe kick out the Mexicans too. I know, let's rape Africa, said Europe, scrambling to see who could rape it the fastest.
They never got Ethiopia.
Britain and France are still hungry.
They never got Thailand.
Yeah, this is all connected to the Industrial Revolution and the need for raw resources. And to do so, they're going to exploit the people who are there. And some of the most horrific stories of our modern era of the last couple of hundred years come out of what countries like Belgium, for example, were doing in Africa during this time. It's just awful.
The United States ran out of destiny to manifest, so they're looking for more.
Hawaii, Cuba.
Wait, Spain controls Cuba. Well, blame something on them and go to war. What should we blame on Spain? Let's blame the Maine on Spain. So they blame the Maine on Spain. Now we're in.
So you have something called yellow journalism that happens during this point where the journalists are really just not the least bit concerned about what's true or not. They're just concerned about what's going to sell more papers. And it's a business like anything else. And so what sells papers is, oh my gosh, the USS Maine, this dreadnought ship is, it wasn't even a dreadnought. It was really smaller than that, I guess. It'd really be more like a modern battle, like a modern heavy cruiser, I guess. But all of that's beside the point. It's going into the harbor and it explodes. And the story everyone runs with is it hit a Spanish mine. Well, we've since determined it was almost certainly an internal explosion that happened. And doesn't matter. It gave us a pretext for war at a time when you have William McKinley, who's president, and many people like him who are starting to see the United States as a player on the world stage. And that means having a modern navy, and that means having colonies and having a presence in the Pacific and projecting American power beyond our own borders.
Business. To celebrate, they kick Panama out of Panama and make a canal connecting the two oceans. Britain just found oil in the Middle East.
It makes cars go.
China is so tired of being bossed around that they delete their old government and make a new, stronger government, which is accidentally weaker and controlled by a guy from the previous government. Europe hasn't had a war since the last war, so they start World War I. Look at those.
There have been wars. You've had the Franco-Prussian War. You've had, the Schleswig-Holstein wars. You've had wars between Germany and Austria. Just not a European-wide war like you're going to get in World War I.
Those guns. It's going to be a great war. So great we won't need a second one. After it's over, they blame Germany. Russia went on strike and the workers overthrew the government. Now everyone's paycheck is the same.
Communism in the Soviet Union.
The Arabs revolt and Britain helps. Now the Ottoman Empire's gone, so we can give the
Jewish people a place to live.
Hopefully the Arabs won't mind. Let's cut the cake, said Sykes and Picot, carving up the remains of the not-so-Ottoman-anymore empire.
This is so much of what we've seen in the last 100 years is connected to these, in many cases, arbitrary drawing of borders by people who aren't there, right? You know, they're not deciding for themselves where the borders are going to be, and you have people that get divided among the borders. You get people who don't get their own homeland in this, and it just creates a lot of the mess that comes later.
Except Turkey. Turkey makes a brand new Turkey.
And then the Saudis conquer Arabia. It just seemed like the right thing to do. Hello? Yes, it's the 1920s calling. Let's get in the car and drive to a party and listen to jazz on the radio and go to the movies. The economy's great and it'll probably be great forever. Just kidding. Germany's back featuring Hitler, the angry mustache model, and he's mad at the Jews for existing. Japan is finally conquering the East.
And the Bolsheviks. He viewed the Russians very much the same way.
And they're so excited they raped Nanking way too hard. They should probably just deny it. Hitler's out of...
And I won't get too deep into all this stuff because we've done a lot of other videos about this, and this is stuff that probably people know a lot better anyway. My oversimplified videos on World War I, World War II, and Hitler are all really good for this.
Control. So the international community tackles him and tries to explain why killing all the Jews is a bad idea, but he kills himself before they could explain it to him.
That's World War II.
Bonus round, Pacific Showdown. United States versus Japan. Fight.
Extinction Ball.
Let's unite all the nations and have some
World peace.
Seems legit. Hi, I'm Gandhi, and if Britain doesn't...
There was an attempt to do that after World War I. It was called the League of Nations, and it was something that was pushed really hard by Woodrow Wilson, but the United States doesn't even join it. So right off the bat, it's really has no teeth. And by the 1930s, it's obvious it's not going anywhere, and so they tried again during World War II. In fact, toward the end of World War II, you have the Allies being referred to as the United Nations. That's what they call themselves.
And get the hell out of India, I'm going to starve myself in public. Wow, that worked. Bonus, now there's Pakistan. Actually,
and then he
Pakistan.
was assassinated.
One of them could be Bangladesh later. The Jews and the Arabs finally figured out which one of them should live in the Holy Land. Me, they both said at the same time. Let's divide up the land so everyone's happy.
Sight, they both get angrier.
Look out, China. There's a new China in China. What's on the menu? Communism. No thanks, said the other China, escaping to an island. I wonder which one is the real China. There's the Korean War, Korea versus Korea. Nobody wins, then it's on pause forever. Let's meet this...
And as we talked about in another recent video, this is very much related to the aftermath of World War II. Just like you had Germany being divided up into 4 occupation zones, 3 of them become West Germany, and then the Soviet zone becomes East Germany. These are occupation zones between the communists and the capitalists, the Western allies here.
Sponsors. Oh, it's the 2 global superpowers. They're having a friendly debate over which economic system is good and which one is an evil virus of Satan. And they both have atom bombs. Fight! Wait, no, that would be the end of the world.
And then they both have hydrogen bombs, which are infinitely more powerful than the atom bomb.
Just keep it cool and spy on each other instead. And make sure we have enough atom bombs. I'll race you to space.
And then fund a bunch of proxy wars in various places like Vietnam and Korea and Afghanistan.
Now let's make some more countries fight themselves. Europe is tired of pillaging other continents, and the continents they were pillaging are tired of being pillaged. So here's a new map with new countries. Now you can't tell who they're being pillaged by. The United States finally decided whether racism is good or bad. They decided it's bad, and the world agrees. South Africa might need another minute to think about it. Let's check the world population.
So South Africa gets a ton of outside pressure. Apartheid, basically what you have happening is you have a black majority in South Africa being ruled by a white minority. And the white minority is taking advantage of that to the point where there's outside pressure and there's trade sanctions and there's all sorts of things that governments from the outside do without invading South Africa to try and push them to change that, and eventually it finally happens.
Whoa. Okay. Technology's better too, that might keep happening. The Soviet Union decides to relax a little and accidentally falls apart. Europe makes a union, so now they can all use the same money, except Britain because they don't feel like it. Let's check the mail. Surprise, it's on the computer. Whoops, someone just attacked America. I bet they'll remember that. Phone call. Surprise, it's in your pocket. Want to learn everything? Surprise, it's on the computer. Now your phone's a computer, which is in your pocket. Whoops, the economy
You could add AI to the end of all of this now, and we still don't know how that's all going to shape out, right? I'm of the generation that is old enough to not have had a computer in my house growing up. I was in college before the internet really became any significant thing. And cell phones I was in my 20s before I had my first cell phone. Smartphones really come about closer to when I'm in my late 20s, early 30s. So, man, what's the world going to look like when my kids are my age? Oh.
Crashed. Don't worry, the big banks won't fail because they're not supposed to. Surprise! Flying robots. With bombs. Want to print a brain? Some people have no friends. Some people have no food. The globe is warming.
And the ocean is full of plastic.
Let's save the planet, said everybody, not knowing how. Let's invent a thing inventor, said the thing inventor after being invented by a thing inventor. That's pretty cool. By the way, where the hell are we?
All right, hope you enjoyed that. I didn't focus obviously on every little detail. Tried to pick and choose my spots to talk about some things. I'm sure in the original, when I reacted to this 5 years ago, I picked and chose some different areas. Some probably is the same. Links in the description if you want to go back and see that old one. Definitely check out Bill Wurtz. He's got some other great videos, some of which we've reacted to in the past. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.